Chapter 24:16. Furious Sacred Lady 1. Feng Wu said, "No, I won't. If she had a tail, she would be wagging it by now. Does she think she's a dog?" Zhuo Qingwan found Feng Wu's behavior unspeakable. A young lady should be graceful and reserved. Feng Wu looks like a woman who entertains men for a living, thought Zhuo Qingwan. She was waiting for the wise crown prince to see through Feng Wu. But she was doomed to be disappointed. After pretending to try and take back his arm, Jun Linyuan simply let Feng Wu hold it. What? Zhuo Qingwan was furious. Jun Linyuan looked down at Feng Wu and said, "Are you a puppy? Stop whimpering." Somehow, Zhuo Qingwan felt that there was affection in his voice. No. It can't be. I must have heard it wrong. While interacting with Jun Linyuan, Feng Wu was also secretly observing Zhuo Qingwan. Because she was the target of her trial. Why hadn't Zhuo Qingwan lost her temper? She had to work harder. She had done more humiliating things in front of Jun Linyuan before. This was nothing to her. Feng Wu stood on the table and rested her hands on her waist. Jun Linyuan, you called me a puppy. If you don't say something nice, I'm going to be very mad. Onji. Zhuo Qingwan was astonished. How dare Feng Wu speak to the crown prince like that? Does she know who he is? Even Feng Sun couldn't stand it for much longer. He kept looking around the room. Why was he being forced to watch this? Please make it stop. He poked Zhuo Qingwan's arm with a finger. Hey. Zhuo Qingwan's mind had gone blank, and Feng Sun's poke woke her up. She reminded herself that she was the chosen girl. She had been brought up as a genius and was supported by both the Zhuo family and Firmament Palace. Even Jun Wuxia was inferior in terms of status. Zhuo Qingwan had always considered herself to be the most beautiful and talented teenager of the empire. But now, she felt that Feng Wu had just slapped her in the face. Rage burned inside her. At that moment, Feng Sun woke her up from her reverie. What? Zhuo Qingwan's glance was very cold. It made Feng Sun jump. Seeing Feng Sun's astonished look, Zhuo Qingwan finally returned to herself. I'm Zhuo Qingwan, and I'm the sacred lady. How can I be jealous of Feng Wu? She's nothing. I would never envy a mortal. Chapter 24:17. Furious Sacred Lady 2. Zhuo Qingwan took a deep breath and asked Feng Sun, "What are you suggesting?" Feng Sun looked from Feng Wu to Zhuo Qingwan and realized what was going on. Zhuo Qingwan was jealous of Feng Wu. That was to say, Zhuo Qingwan was fond of Boss Jun. Feng Sun frowned. He had mixed feelings about that. He had been a little unhappy when he thought that Feng Wu was in love with Boss Jun because he felt that now that his sister had a man, she wouldn't care about her brother so much. But when he saw that Zhuo Qingwan wanted Jun Linyuan as well, he was on guard. Come with me. He headed for the door. Zhuo Qingwan wouldn't move, but Feng Sun said coldly, "It's about Boss Jun." Zhuo Qingwan was intrigued. Was Feng Sun angry? Was he in love with Feng Wu as well? That's always a possibility. I hate to admit it, but Feng Wu is a very pretty girl. I bet Feng Sun doesn't like seeing what's going on either. With that in mind, Zhuo Qingwan followed Feng Sun out of the room. Outside, Feng Sun frowned and stared at Zhuo Qingwan. Are you fond of Boss Jun? He got straight to the point. Once she was outside, Zhuo Qingwan gradually regained her senses. She decided that she wouldn't embarrass herself over someone like Feng Wu. Feng Sun repeated the question. Are you fond of Boss Jun? Zhuo Qingwan raised her chin and said coldly, You're thinking too much. Feng Sun kept his gaze on her. Am I? So, you're not in love with Boss Jun? Of course, Zhuo Qingwan wouldn't admit her feelings. She believed that the first one to confess their affection would be the loser in a relationship. If she admitted it to Feng Sun now, the crown prince would soon know of it as well. When that happened, she would look too eager, which was against her plan. Zhuo Qingwan had had 5 years to think about it in Firmament Palace, and she had observed many couples. She decided that she should never let a man know that she was in love with him. Otherwise, she would lose the battle for good. Feng Sun's frown grew bigger. Zhuo Qingwan, I'm going to ask you one last time. Are you really not in love with Boss Jun? Zhuo Qingwan snorted. Yes, His Royal Highness is brilliant, but I'm not a nobody either. Why do I have to be in love with him? Do you think I'm as superficial as all those women? Feng Sun let out a breath of relief. I'm so glad to hear that. But you're not in love with Boss Jun. No, it's not good at all, thought Zhuo Qingwan. She wanted to smack Feng Sun on the head, but she needed to force herself to keep her composure. And she feigned an indifferent attitude. Once that problem was solved, Feng Sun became much kinder. After all, they had gone to school together once. Qingwan, that's the way to go. Feng Sun patted her on the shoulder. Since you're not Xiao Wu's rival in love, we can all be friends. Zhuo Qingwan frowned and shoved Feng Sun away. Chapter 24:18, Furious Sacred Lady, 3. It was true that to many teenage girls, young Lord Feng was also an ideal future husband, but Zhuo Qingwan thought very highly of herself and only saw Feng Sun as Jun Linyuan's minion. Since she thought she was going to be Jun Linyuan's future wife, she didn't think much of Feng Sun. Feng Sun pursed his lips. You do believe that you're the sacred lady, don't you? How arrogant. Zhuo Qingwan was so mad that she almost couldn't keep a straight face. She wanted to go back inside, but Feng Sun blocked her way. Wait. She glared at Feng Sun. Feng Sun said, why are you still going inside? Since she wouldn't be his friend, he wouldn't treat her like one. Zhuo Qingwan frowned at Feng Sun. Feng Sun said, can't you see what's going on inside? The two of them are having a moment together. Don't be a third wheel. Zhuo Qingwan's nails dug into her palms. A moment together? Are they really a couple now? No, I won't have it. She scolded Feng Sun. Do you know what you're suggesting? Feng Sun said, what do you mean? Zhuo Qingwan said in a self-righteous tone, you're ruining His Royal Highness's reputation. Feng Wu is a nobody. She can't have anything to do with the crown prince. Feng Sun glared at her, but Zhuo Qingwan went on before he could retort. Feng Sun, you're His Royal Highness's best friend and should uphold his reputation. Feng Wu is worthless. She's detrimental to the crown prince. Feng Sun was infuriated. In his eyes, Xiao Wu was the best. She was beautiful, talented, and kind. Why was Zhuo Qingwan saying such things about her? Feng Sun said, if Xiao Wu isn't worthy, who is? You? That rendered Zhuo Qingwan speechless. She pointed at Feng Sun and said, Feng Wu has brainwashed you. You're not His Royal Highness's friend. She stormed off after that. Tong Kai quickly ran after her. Feng Sun was furious. If Zhuo Qingwan hadn't left so soon, he would have hit her. That woman is impossible. Is that what a sacred lady of Firmament Palace is supposed to be like? He grumbled. Zhuo Qingwan was quite aloof when she was little, but she had still been a lovely girl. How did she become like this? Feng Sun was frustrated. Inside, Feng Wu didn't do anything else after Zhuo Qingwan left. She listened to the movements outside. She had planned to take her acting to a new level after Zhuo Qingwan came back. She would sit on Jun Linyuan's lap, and if that couldn't convince Zhuo Qingwan, she would do something even more outrageous. However, she only heard the sound of Zhuo Qingwan leaving. She felt defeated. Are you upset? The crown prince frowned. He looked in the direction of the door and seemed to realize something. Since the 11th trial wasn't finished yet, Feng Wu had to keep sucking up to Jun Linyuan. At that thought, she smiled wryly. I'm not upset. Chapter 24:19, Feng Wu's Birthday, 1. Really? The crown prince glanced at Feng Wu and felt that he had missed something important. Seeing the pensive look on his face, Feng Wu felt uneasy. She was worried that Jun Linyuan would realize that she had been acting. That would put her in a very difficult spot. He would be furious. At that thought, Feng Wu changed the subject. I still need to take care of something at home. I'm off. Bye. Before Jun Linyuan realized it, Feng Wu jumped out the window and was out of sight. She was so fast. Jun Linyuan didn't say anything. He could catch up with her if he wanted to, but what happened earlier was nagging at him, and he sat there, frowning. He then walked out of the room. Feng Sun was perplexed. Where's Xiao Wu? Jun Linyuan smirked. She's gone, she ran faster than a thief. Feng Sun rubbed his nose. Zhou Qingwan is gone, and so is Xiao Wu. It's almost like she was putting on a show for Zhou Qingwan. Boom! Those words sounded like a thunderclap in the Crown Prince's ears. Feng Sun saw Boss Jun suddenly stop walking, so he glanced at him. The Crown Prince's face was livid. Realizing what he had said, Feng Sun wanted to slap himself. Why did he say such things? He immediately tried to repair the damage. I'm talking nonsense. Xiao Wu was like this long before Zhou Qingwan came back. Of course, it's not because of Zhou Qingwan. Only then did the tension in the air disappear. Feng Sun sighed in relief. The intimidating energy from Boss Jun had almost crushed him. He stole a glance at Boss Jun and saw that he still wasn't in a good mood. When Feng Wu was around, he almost looked peaceful. But as soon as she was gone, he was back to being the intimidating Crown Prince. Feng Sun tried to strike up a conversation, but the Crown Prince never replied. They walked down the stairs together. When they reached the 4th floor, they heard voices inside. Do you know how embarrassing that Feng Wu is? The Crown Prince had been deep in thought, but that name triggered him again. Feng Sun looked at the room where the voice came from. Feng Wu? Do you mean the girl from the Feng clan? I heard that she started cultivating again and has been doing a good job. Yes, she has, but have you forgotten? 5 years ago, she was mentioned alongside Miss Zhou Qingwan. Do you know what happened recently? What? Miss Qingwan, the sacred lady of Firmament Palace, came back in her phoenix carriage. That's right. And the magpies were giving out envelopes that contained vouchers. Guess what happened? Chapter 2420, Feng Wu's Birthday, 2. All the guests in the tower were some kind of influential figures. Otherwise, they would never be able to get in. They didn't care if other people heard their conversation, but they had no idea that the most influential figure in the empire was listening in. And the magpies were giving out envelopes that contained vouchers. Guess what happened? What happened? Did you know that there was a top prize? Of course. It's a house with a big courtyard in the imperial capital. Yes, that's the prize. It must be worth a lot. Do you know who got the envelope? Who's the lucky person? Feng Wu. Feng Wu? As in the Feng Wu? That's her. Then she's quite lucky. No, she's not. Both she and Miss Qingwan had the true phoenix blood 5 years ago. Now, Miss Qingwan is already the sacred lady of Firmament Palace, but what about Feng Wu? She has to fight with the common people for petty gifts. Hearing that, everyone laughed. They had no idea that someone who cared a lot about Feng Wu had heard every word. The Crown Prince now had a murderous look in his eyes. Your Royal Highness, Yen Yu was with them. Hearing the conversation, she stepped out and reported in a low voice, they're the children of some 5th-ranked officials. Their names are... The Crown Prince only glanced at Yen Yu. Yen Yu knew that those officials were going to be demoted. She tried to explain on Feng Wu's behalf. I don't think Miss Feng Wu meant to take that envelope. She doesn't care about such things. She could tell that the Crown Prince was a little less furious when she said those words. She realized what the Crown Prince wanted to hear. She went on, because when I served tea to Miss Feng Wu, she gave that envelope to me as a tip. Here it is. Yen Yu then showed the envelope to Jun Linyuan. She felt a chill run down her spine. When the Crown Prince was angry, many people could die. That was a fact. Feng Sun snorted. Those people are abominable. How dare they talk about Xiao Wu behind her back? I'll teach them a lesson. Jun Linyuan didn't try to stop him. Just then, Yen Yu said, I remember that Miss Feng Wu's birthday is coming up. Because she knew that her master cared about Feng Wu, she had collected some information on her. Is it? Feng Sun's eyes lit up. When? And isn't Zhou Qingwan's birthday on New Year's Eve? Yen Yu smiled. Miss Feng Wu's birthday is on that day as well. What? Feng Sun cried out. Really? What a coincidence. I didn't know. Chapter 24-21, Feng Wu's Birthday, 3. Yen Yu smiled. Probably because Miss Wu's birthday celebration is always very elaborate. Seeing the Crown Prince's attitude, Yen Yu knew which side she should stand on now. Feng Wu was a brilliant young lady, but Yen Yu wouldn't support Feng Wu just because she liked her. People like Yen Yu never revealed their own opinion. Their master's opinion was theirs. They would like whoever their master liked. Yen Yu was glad that she and her master liked the same person. Boss Jun, you've been to Zhou Qingwan's birthday party before. Do you remember? Feng Sun finally remembered something. You were already engaged to Xiao Wu, but you still went to Zhou Qingwan's party. Jun Linyuan looked confused. He couldn't remember. Feng Sun said in frustration, the guests here are all from good backgrounds, but they're still talking about Xiao Wu like that. Other people will just be meaner. Why did that girl take the envelope? Yen Yu spoke up at that moment. She casually said, Miss Feng Wu doesn't think much about the prize, so I don't think she meant to take the gift. Maybe it was meant to land in her hands. Feng Sun said, there were so many people. How could that envelope just happen to land in her hands, unless Zhou Qingwan purposefully? Zhou Qingwan didn't do it on purpose, did she? Yen Yu dropped the hint. Miss Qingwan stormed off just then. Young Lord Feng, did you offend her? Feng Sun said, I wanted to talk to her outside because I saw that she was angry, but she somehow got offended. Forget about it. That's not important. He waved Yen Yu off. Yen Yu looked at him in resignation. Were all men so slow? She could tell why Zhou Qingwan was mad right away, but these men just couldn't see it. She had dropped all the hints she needed to drop, but he said that it wasn't important. At that thought, Yen Yu wanted to smack Feng Sun on the head. Feng Sun was already thinking about Feng Wu's birthday. He said, Xiao Wu will be 14 after New Year's Eve, and in the Junwu Empire, that makes her eligible for marriage. It's a very important birthday. Yen Yu glanced at Jun Linyuan. Although he didn't say anything, she could tell that he was thinking the same thing. The teenager just wouldn't speak his mind. Yen Yu immediately said, Miss Su has given out gifts, so how about we do the same for Miss Feng Wu's birthday? Feng Sun said, that's not a bad idea, but won't those people say that Xiao Wu is copying Zhou Qingwan? Yen Yu said grumpily, giving out gift envelopes is a tradition. Miss Su didn't invent it. Zhou Qingwan was only Miss Wu to her now. Plus, Yen Yu chuckled, Miss Feng Wu is so clever. I'm sure she'll use this opportunity well. Hachoo! Feng Wu sneezed in Fallen Star Yard. Chapter 24-22, Feng Wu's Birthday, 4. Phoenix Yard, the Zhou family. Zhou Qingwan had been angry the whole day. The entire Zhou family felt very nervous. All the servants remained silent and worked efficiently, fearing that Miss Zhou would vent her anger on them. In Zhou Qingwan's bedroom, Tong Kai still remembered what happened the day before. When the sacred lady entered her bedchamber, she tilted her head back and let out an angry roar. Instantly, all the wooden furniture was pulverized. There had been 2 maids in the room when they entered. They turned into puddles of blood as well right in front of Tong Xue's eyes. Tong Kai was speechless. She had never seen the sacred lady so angry before. Zhou Qingwan was in a trance-like state the whole day. No one was allowed to get within 10 meters of her. She would kill anyone who dared to try. Tong Kai only moved closer after she saw that Zhou Qingwan didn't look so furious anymore. She had finally come up with an idea. Miss Qingwan, Tong Kai knew what was on Zhou Qingwan's mind, so she carefully reminded her, I asked around after we got back yesterday. That Feng Wu really is a piece of work. Zhou Qingwan glared at her. She couldn't tolerate the mention of that name. However, Tong Kai hadn't served Zhou Qingwan for 5 years for no reason. She had a soft, steady voice and was very considerate. Miss Qingwan, you've been cultivating in Firmament Palace for the past 5 years. Unlike her, who had all the time to hover around His Royal Highness. That's why the Crown Prince is more familiar with her. Tong Kai knew that she couldn't make it sound like Zhuo Qingwan was to be blamed. She needed to belittle Feng Wu as much as she could. If the sacred lady thought that she was being humiliated, Tong Kai knew that she was dead. She was right. Zhuo Qingwan had been spreading rumors, saying that the Crown Prince was so fond of her that she was the only candidate for his future wife. She had even fooled herself, not to mention Tong Kai. But Zhuo Qingwan was no fool. When she saw the Crown Prince's interaction with Feng Wu, she knew that there was something going on between them. Back then, she had been the only close female friend of the Crown Prince, but Feng Wu had basically replaced her now. It made her feel humiliated in front of Tong Kai. In her mind, no one was allowed to see that side of her. Tong Xue's life was indeed in danger. But the young maid could read people well. She had seen that her life was in danger yesterday, but instead of running away, she faced the challenge head-on and went to check up on Feng Wu. They should have done that a long time ago. But Zhuo Qingwan had been ignoring Feng Wu because she thought she had taken Feng Wu out of the running 5 years ago. To her, Feng Wu wasn't even worth a glance. But Tong Kai realized how serious it was, so she went out for help. Firmament Palace had a branch in the imperial capital. It was known as Firmament Pavilion. They hired professional spies there, and it had only taken them a day to gather all the information Tong Kai needed. After reading what Feng Wu had been doing these days, Tong Kai was astonished. Chapter 24-23, Feng Wu's Birthday, 5. Tong Kai was shocked by how cunning Feng Wu was. Her sacred lady had definitely underestimated that woman. After putting all the information in order, Tong Kai put a 10 cm thick folder on Zhuo Qingwan's desk. The Zhuo family had efficiently restored the bedchamber 1 hour after it was destroyed. However, Mrs. Zhuo had forbidden anyone from spreading the news. Miss Qingwan, Tong Kai put the file on the desk, but Zhuo Qingwan still ignored her, so she reminded her mistress, "We should probably get to know our enemy better." Zhuo Qingwan frowned and looked like she was going to explode at any moment. If she lost her temper, things would get very ugly. Tong Kai bowed and left the room. After she was gone, Zhuo Qingwan's gaze moved to the file. Was that everything Feng Wu had done in the imperial capital in the past year? In fact, Zhen Xia of the Crown Prince's residence, her mother, and many other people had all written to her, but she had burnt all the letters that had Feng Wu's name in it. Mu Yaoyao, her junior sister, went to Firmament Palace in person to beg for her to come back. She told Zhuo Qingwan that if she didn't come back soon, Feng Wu would steal the Crown Prince's heart. And what did Zhuo Qingwan say? She said that if a man could be stolen, he wasn't meant for her to keep. She still remembered how frustrated Mu Yaoyao had looked. She rubbed her forehead and looked at the file on the desk. How thick? Were there so many things to record? Before, Zhuo Qingwan would have burnt the file to ash. However, she remembered what Tong Kai said. We should know our enemy a little better. Taking a deep breath, Zhuo Qingwan fought back her repulsion and took the first booklet in the file. Northern Border City. She read from dawn to dusk. Tong Kai stayed outside the entire time, filled with anxiety. In front of everyone else, the sacred lady was as otherworldly as an immortal, but Tong Kai had been with her for many years, and she knew better. The real sacred lady was treacherous and ruthless. She wouldn't even blink when she killed someone, as if they were just an insect on the road. After she read Feng Wu's story, would they have to redo the bedroom again? Just then, she heard Zhuo Qingwan's calm voice. Bring Mu Yaoyao here. Mu Yaoyao had come back a few days earlier. Although she was the daughter of Lord Mu, to Zhuo Qingwan, she was just another minion. Yes. Tong Kai was finally relieved. She knew that this was a historical moment. Because her sacred lady was finally starting to pay attention to Feng Wu. Zhuo Qingwan looked at the booklet on the desk. It read, Feng Wu's birthday, New Year's Eve. She smirked. She remembered that 5 years ago, the Crown Prince went to her birthday party in person and gave her a gift. This time, she would show Feng Wu that she was the woman the Crown Prince loved. Chapter 24-24, gift envelopes. Fallen Star Yard. Whenever Feng Sun went to see Feng Wu there, he always jumped over the wall and never used the front door. The gate of Fallen Star Yard had been damaged and repaired again. Feng Wu then put inscriptions on the walls so that they wouldn't be damaged so easily. Xiao Wu. Feng Sun sat on the wall and waved at Feng Wu. Feng Wu was sitting on top of a tree and absorbing the spiritual essence in the morning sunlight. She opened her eyes to find the teenager beaming at her. Feng Sun? Feng Wu didn't move, so Feng Sun eagerly jumped into the tree and sat down next to her. The big tree had been in Fallen Star Yard for many years now. It would take 3 people to wrap their arms around the tree, and it was over 30 meters tall. Sitting on top, one could see the entire Feng Manor as well as the street outside. It was deep into winter, and everything was covered by snow. On the street, the Feng clan had arranged for someone to clean up the snow outside the front gate. Around the corner, a few breakfast stalls had been set up, and the aroma was mouth-watering. "Shall I buy you breakfast?" Feng Wu glanced at Feng Sun. Although she could see everything up on the roof, it felt too far away from the common people, and she didn't like that feeling. She would rather blend in with the crowd. "Breakfast? Great." Before Feng Sun could jump into the courtyard, Feng Wu led him to the other side of the wall and toward a street corner. There was a wonton stall with only a few customers. The owner was an elderly couple who seemed to know Feng Wu well. They asked, "Miss Wu, do you want the usual? Small wontons with a lean meat baked bun?" Feng Wu nodded with a smile. Feng Sun said, "I'll have the same, but a large one." The elderly couple nodded. After ordering the food, Feng Sun asked curiously, "Do you know them well?" Feng Wu said, "Their food tastes like home." Feng Sun said, "You're such a strange girl." Feng Wu looked at him curiously. Feng Sun said, "I thought noble young ladies like you would never eat on the side of the street. Zhuo Qingwan hated it. If she gets any of the smell in her hair, she'll wash it 3 times. Feng Wu said, "How pretentious." "That's so true." Feng Sun couldn't agree more. "Before I knew you, I thought that all girls were like Zhuo Qingwan. I was so wrong." By the way, Feng Sun finally remembered why he was here today. "Xiao Wu, I need to ask you something." "What is it?" Feng Wu asked. "You never sound so humble. What's the question?" "Do you know how to give out gift envelopes?" Feng Sun asked grumpily. "Zhuo Qingwan came back with all those magpies and red envelopes, and I don't like it at all. Can you do something better?" Something better? Of course Feng Wu could. In her previous life, Feng Wu was used to giving out and receiving gift envelopes. She knew exactly what to do with them. Chapter 24-25, Dragon and Phoenix. Many big companies had also turned this activity into a profitable business, and Feng Wu knew that she could learn from them. However, why gift envelopes? Are you going to pay for them? Do you have too much money to burn? Feng Wu was perplexed. Feng Sun cleared his throat. He glanced at Feng Wu. Of course, it was because of Jun Linyuan, but he couldn't tell Feng Wu that. New Year's Eve is in a few days. What's wrong with giving out some gifts? Any ideas? Feng Sun grumbled. "We have to do better than Zhuo Qinglan." Feng Wu said, "But it'll cost you a lot of money." Feng Sun patted his chest. "Money won't be a problem. I'll take care of it." Feng Wu asked, "How big a scene do you want it to be?" Feng Sun said, "The bigger, the better." Feng Wu asked, "Are you sure?" Feng Sun said, "Of course." Feng Wu rolled her eyes at him. She couldn't understand these rich people. The Zhuo family. Master Zhuo and Mrs. Zhuo were discussing in low voices. Apart from the first day, Qingwan has kept a low profile since she came back. We hardly ever see her. Master Zhuo nodded. "Mrs. Zhuo said, her birthday is coming up. How about we throw her a big party?" Master Zhuo asked, "Is it really necessary?" Mrs. Zhuo said, "Of course it is. Have you forgotten who Qingwan is? She's the only girl with the true phoenix blood in the empire, and you know what that means." Everyone in the Junwo Empire knew what it meant. Noble families would often marry one another, including the imperial family. The true phoenix blood was one of the most prestigious bloodlines and almost as respected as the dragon bloodline. Not all imperial family members had the dragon bloodline. There would be one member at most in each generation. Sometimes, the entire living imperial family might not have it. For instance, no one in Emperor Wu's generation had it. Therefore, everyone was elated when they found that Jun Linyuan had the bloodline. That was why no matter what Jun Linyuan did, Emperor Wu would only shout at him but wouldn't actually do anything. With his dragon bloodline, it would only make sense that he should marry a girl with the true phoenix blood. Once the two bloodlines combined, they would probably have even more talented babies. Mrs. Zhou was very pleased. His Royal Highness has the dragon bloodline, and Qingwan has the only true phoenix blood in the empire. She's the only girl His Royal Highness will marry. Master Zhou was more level-headed than she was. You forgot about Feng Wu. Mrs. Zhou smirked. You did that thing 5 years ago precisely because of Feng Wu, right? His Royal Highness had 2 choices, but now he only has 1. Mrs. Zhou didn't think much of it when she saw Master Zhuo's frown because she knew that her family was going to be connected to the imperial family by marriage. My lord, we were friendly with Prince Jun Linshan, but we can't do that now. After all, His Royal Highness is going to be Qingwan's future husband, so we should support him. Master Zhuo rolled his eyes at her. Everyone knows that Prince Jun Linshan can never replace the crown prince. His supporters are only making fools of themselves. His Majesty will only laugh it off. Chapter 24-26, Jun Linyuan isn't the only one I can marry. Whenever Emperor Wu got angry at Jun Linyuan, he wanted to urge Jun Linshan to compete with his brother, but that was very naive of him. Jun Linshan wasn't Jun Linyuan's match at all. Master Zhuo shook his head. But His Royal Highness treats Feng Wu differently. Master Zhuo frowned. I disagree. Mrs. Zhuo shook her head. Yes, His Royal Highness found Feng Wu special before, but that was when Luan hadn't come back. Now that she's here, things will be different. My lord, just think about Qingwan. She has the true phoenix blood and is the only perfect match for the dragon bloodline. And she's supported by both the Zhuo family and Firmament Palace. That's unmatched in the Junwo Empire. Moreover, she's very talented. She's only about to turn 18, but she's already a spiritual king. How formidable is that? Mrs. Zhuo listed Zhuo Qingwan's merits before naming Feng Wu's shortcomings. In the end, she reached the conclusion, His Royal Highness was only tricked by that Feng Wu because he doesn't know how brilliant Luan is. I believe that he'll come to his senses. The more she spoke, the more excited she became. Let's have a big celebration and show everyone how amazing Luan is. The entire imperial capital will talk about it, and His Royal Highness will have to listen. Of course, the most ideal situation is that His Royal Highness will come in person, said Mrs. Wait, I need to discuss it with Luan. In Phoenix Yard. My lady. Tong Kei thought that her mistress was lost in thought, so she wanted to wake her up from her reverie. But in fact, Zhuo Qingwan was eavesdropping on her parents. Master Zhuo didn't set up a barrier when he spoke, and at Zhuo Qingwan's cultivation level, she could easily hear them. Zhuo Qingwan glanced at Tong Kei and rose to her feet. Mrs. Zhuo was coming out with her maids when Zhuo Qingwan arrived. She was pleasantly surprised when she saw her daughter. Luan, I was going to see you and you're here. What a coincidence. Come in. Mom and Dad have something to tell you. Zhuo Qingwan remained indifferent. She still used her condescending manner when she spoke to her parents. After they entered, Master Zhuo cleared his throat. Luan, there's no one else around, so just tell us, what do you think of His Royal Highness? Mrs. Zhuo rolled her eyes at her husband. What kind of question was that? Of course, everyone admired His Royal Highness. But Zhuo Qingwan frowned and said coldly, His Royal Highness is brilliant, but he's not the only one I can marry. What? Mrs. Zhuo paled. Luan, are you in love with someone else? Who is it? Is he from Firmament Palace? Zhuo Qingwan said, there's no one. I'm only saying that I'm just as brilliant as he is. If he marries me, I'll stand by his side, but if he won't, I can rise to the top myself. Mrs. Zwa panicked. Who gave you that idea? What do you mean if he won't? You have to marry him. Chapter 24-27. Where's His Royal Highness? 1. Master Zwa nodded and said, You're right. Mrs. Zwa glared at him. No, she's not. We invested so much in her so that she can marry His Royal Highness. Master Zwa said, His Royal Highness is brilliant, but so is Luan. She'll marry His Royal Highness one day, but she can't seem too eager. We should let other people hear her little speech as well. Mrs. Zwa didn't understand. Master Zwa patted Zwa Qingluan's shoulder. That's good. You know what you're doing and you have a clear goal. Although we've lost your siblings, with you here, the Zwa family will still have a bright future. Only then did Zwa Qingluan remember what she read in the file. What happened? Did Feng Wu kill them? She didn't trust what she heard from other people, so she asked her parents. Mrs. Zwa had been waiting for that question for a long time, and she burst into tears. She added very colorful details to her description when she told Zwa Qingluan how Zwa Qingxian, Zwa Qinglu, and Zwa Qingyu died. In the end, she took Zwa Qingluan's hand and wept. Feng Wu hated you for destroying her true phoenix blood, so she took it out on your siblings. Luan, you have to make her pay for what she did. Zwa Qingluan didn't really care about her siblings, but she took what Feng Wu did personally. Mother, I'll avenge them. Don't worry, Zwa Qingluan promised. Throw a big party for me. If you can, invite Feng Wu. Why? Mrs. Zwa asked angrily. Because her birthday is on the same day, Zwa Qingluan said viciously. She's already on guard. I don't think she'll come, said Mrs. Zwa Qingluan smirked, then she'll be a coward. Mrs. Zwa didn't understand, but she trusted her clever daughter. By the way, send an invitation to the Crown Prince's residence as well, said Zwa Qingluan before she left. Mrs. Zwa was pleasantly surprised. She grabbed Master Zwa's hand and said, Look, Luan really is fond of His Royal Highness. If we send the Crown Prince's residence an invitation, we should invite the other influential families as well. The entire imperial capital will see how miserable Feng Wu is in comparison. Master Zwa didn't say anything, but instinct told him that things wouldn't be so simple. The Crown Prince's residence. Granny Gong frowned when she saw the invitation. Zwa Qingluan's 18th birthday was coming up, and His Royal Highness was invited to the party. Granny Gong snorted, tossed the letter aside, and went back to what she was doing. She needed to prepare for something very important. Soon, it was New Year's Eve. The Zwa family was packed. Many influential guests were there for the event. Even the main street outside was blocked by carriages. The Feng clan had no visitors at all. It was a stark contrast to the Zwa family. There were guests from all 9 major clans. Even a royal banquet probably wouldn't have so many people. Where's His Royal Highness? That was the only thing Mrs. Zwa cared about. Chapter 24-28. Where's His Royal Highness? 2. It was a stark contrast to the Zwa family. There were guests from all 9 major clans. Even a royal banquet probably wouldn't have so many people. Where's His Royal Highness? That was the only thing Mrs. Zwa cared about. Granny Tao replied with a smile, We sent invitations to the Crown Prince, young Lord Feng, and young Lord Xian. Mrs. Zwa nodded. They were friends with Luan when they were little. I'm sure they'll be here to celebrate Luan's birthday. Granny Tao said, I'm sure they'll come. Just then, they heard the announcement outside. Princess Mu Yao Yao is here on behalf of the Mu family. Mrs. Zwa said happily, Look, Princess Mu is here. Immediately after that, there was another announcement. Princess Jun Wuxia is here. Jun Wuxia and Zwa Qingluan had been good friends since they were little. Her presence meant a lot. Unlike old Mrs. Gu's birthday, the guests weren't government officials. Most of them were noble ladies with their daughters, and some had brought their sons as well. After all, Zhuo Qingwan had many admirers. For instance, Mrs. Dugu brought both Dugu Yamo and Dugu Mingxi. The teenagers gathered in the garden, and the mothers and daughters stayed indoors and chatted. Of course, their conversation revolved around lavishing praise on Zhuo Qingwan. They all said that she was the most talented and capable young woman in the empire, and her true phoenix blood made her the only candidate for the future wife of the crown prince. Mrs. Tao and Tao Qingqing were there as well. They were in a quieter corner of the room. Mrs. Tao nudged Tao Qingqing. "Why don't you say hello to Miss Qingwan?" Tao Qingqing thought very highly of herself as well and didn't like the idea of sucking up to Zhuo Qingwan. Mrs. Tao lowered her voice and chided her daughter in a voice that only the two of them could hear. "You're going to marry Prince Jun Linshan one day, and that will make you and Miss Qingwan sister-in-laws. Just go." Tao Qingqing said, "Prince Jun Linshan doesn't get on well with His Royal Highness." Mrs. Tao said sternly, "Use your brain. Prince Jun Linshan will never be the crown prince's match. He'll always be only a prince." Tao Qingqing said, "Mother, how can you say such things about your future son-in-law? If that's the case, why do you want me to marry him?" Mrs. Tao said, "Do you think you can marry His Royal Highness, then?" Tao Qingqing said, "Mother." Mrs. Tao was very direct. "I'm not criticizing you, but you're just not the sharpest tool in the box. Your father and I have indulged you, and you've never been a hard-working cultivator. You're simply not Miss Qingwan's match." Tao Qingqing snorted. "It's not certain that Zhuo Qingwan will marry His Royal Highness. That Feng Wu has a chance too." Mrs. Tao rubbed her head affectionately and sighed. "Sweetheart, you know nothing about marriage. Yes, His Royal Highness is fond of that girl, and we all can see it. So what?" Tao Qingqing was confused. "What do you mean?" Chapter 24-29. Where's His Royal Highness? 3. Mrs. Tao said, "Marriage is the joining of two families, and the Feng family is nothing compared with the Zhuo family, not to mention that Zhuo Qingwan is also connected to Firmament Palace. Although Feng Wu has been making fast progress, Zhuo Qingwan has the true phoenix blood. Do you know what that means? It means that she's the chosen one." "But Feng Wu is so pretty," Tao Qingqing said. "She's already so good-looking now. Just imagine how beautiful she'll be when she grows up." Mrs. Tao shook her head. Tao Qingqing was perplexed. "Am I wrong?" "Of course you are." Mrs. Tao patted her head. "You don't understand men at all. To men like His Royal Highness, a pretty girl like Feng Wu can be an addition to their collection, but someone like Zhuo Qingwan is the woman they'll marry." Tao Qingqing said, "Is that so?" Mrs. Tao said, "Just wait and see. His Royal Highness and Zhuo Qingwan were childhood friends, and they're still very close. Today is Zhuo Qingwan's birthday. His Royal Highness will definitely come here. It'll be as good as an official announcement. After that, Zhuo Qingwan will be even more prestigious. Quickly, go talk to her before His Royal Highness arrives." Tao Qingqing mumbled, "I feel sorry for Feng Wu then. I heard that she was still engaged to His Royal Highness. She then went to befriend Zhuo Qingwan. However, Zhuo Qingwan was so unapproachable. She glanced past Tao Qingqing as if she was invisible. She only showed her face for a brief moment before going inside, and probably wouldn't come back out again before the party started." Tao Qingqing was speechless. She stared at Zhuo Qingwan in disbelief. She was the daughter of a lord and was used to getting things her way. When she went to court, even Empress Dugu had taken her hands and praised her in front of His Majesty. But Zhuo Qingwan. She wasn't mean or said anything rude to her. She simply looked past Tao Qingqing as if she wasn't worth the energy. Tao Qingqing would rather hear some harsh words from her. That would make them enemies on equal footing. But Zhuo Qingwan made her feel like a nobody. That was so frustrating. Tao Qingqing stomped her foot and grumbled, "His Royal Highness may not come." "I don't think His Royal Highness will come," said a cold voice behind her. Tao Qingqing turned around and saw that it was Dugu Yamo. She asked, "Why are you so sure?" The Duga family and the Zwa family were related by marriage and were allies. She couldn't understand why Dugu Yamo said that. "Do you fancy His Royal Highness?" Tao Qingqing frowned. Chapter 2430. Where's His Royal Highness? 4. I don't deny that I used to be in love with His Royal Highness, but I fancy someone else now. Dugu Yamo smiled. Tao Qingqing didn't believe her. How can you like someone else after you've been in love with His Royal Highness? Dugu Yamo, you must be lying. So tell me, who's that person? It's Feng Wu. Dugu Yamo grinned. Tao Qingqing almost choked on her own spit. That's not funny. Dugu Yamo stopped joking. She looked at Tao Qingqing and asked seriously, "Do you want to know the real Feng Wu?" Tao Qingqing frowned. "Do you know what she's really like?" Dugu Yamo asked, "Do you want to hear the story of how she was trapped in the tombs and how she fought against all odds and succeeded in the end?" Tao Qingqing was intrigued. "Tell me everything." "Oh, really? She's so smart." "No. She turned a maid into an ultimate body, you said? That's so rare. Of course everyone will try to recruit her." "What? Even that useless Duan Chaoga is a genius now?" "Onji. Did you say that Feng Wu spoke back to His Majesty?" "What? Feng Wu?" Tao Qingqing kept crying out in surprise and making all kinds of exclamations. Meanwhile, Mrs. Zhuo was having a difficult time. "Mrs. Tao asked a subtle question when she greeted Mrs. "Will we be seeing His Royal Highness today? I had the pleasure to meet him once in the Gu family. I would be so honored to see the Crown Prince again." Mrs. Zhuo recalled what Zhuo Qingwan told her. Zhuo Qingwan said that she had personally sent another invitation to the Crown Prince, so he would definitely be here. All the noble ladies around them looked in their direction when Mrs. Tao asked the question. Most of them had decided to come here today because of the Crown Prince. The rumor outside was that the Crown Prince was deeply in love with Zhuo Qingwan, so they all wanted to see that side of Jun Linyuan. Mrs. Zhuo forced a smile and said, "Qingwan wrote the invitation herself, and His Royal Highness replied in person, saying that he would be here to celebrate Qingwan's birthday. You know how busy His Royal Highness is. I'm sure he's still working right now." "That's right. State affairs are more important. I'm sure His Royal Highness will be here once he's free. Maybe he's already seeing the sacred lady in her room now. Haha." Once the subject was diverted, Mrs. Zhuo quickly went outside. She grabbed Granny Tao and asked in a low, fierce voice, "Is His Royal Highness here yet?" Granny Tao had been waiting outside the front gate the whole time. She shook her head anxiously. "Not yet." "Has young Lord Feng arrived?" asked Mrs. Zhuo. Feng Sun was the Crown Prince's best buddy. Having him here would be the next best thing. Granny Tao still shook her head. "I don't see him either." "What about young Lord Xian?" Chapter 2431. Miserable Feng Wu. "I haven't seen him." Mrs. Zhuo wanted to slap Granny Tao. Could they have gone to Phoenix Yard directly? That was Mrs. Zhuo's last hope. Granny Tao smiled bitterly and shook her head. If that was the case, Miss Qingwan wouldn't have smashed all those dishes. Mrs. Zhuo shook her head and began to panic. If His Royal Highness didn't come, she couldn't imagine what would happen. "Go find my husband, and send people to the Crown Prince's residence, Northern Feng Mansion, and Lord Xian's manor. If His Royal Highness doesn't come in the end, you have to get Feng Sun and Xianyi here, even if you need to kidnap them." "Yes." Granny Tao immediately went off to give out the order. Meanwhile, where was Feng Sun? And where was Xianyi? They were both at the Crown Prince's residence. "Boss Jun, it's Xiao Wu's birthday today. Aren't you going to tell her happy birthday in person?" Feng Sun tried to take Jun Linyuan to Feng Wu. The Crown Prince was his usual self and refused to admit his feelings. He glanced at Feng Sun and waved him off. "That won't be necessary." Feng stood by his side and looked down at his feet. He was venting his sarcasm inwardly. Before Feng Sun arrived, Jun Linyuan had changed outfits 13 times. The robes were either the wrong color or of poor design. He ended up complaining to the tailors. His Royal Highness had never tried on different clothes before. Feng Sun grabbed Jun Linyuan's arm. Just come with us, and let's celebrate Xiao Wu's birthday for her. You have no idea how busy the Zhou family is today. On my way here, I saw that all the carriages were going that way. Nearly all the 9 major clans have sent someone to attend the party. Xiao Wu is so miserable in comparison. Her family doesn't like her either. I bet she's all alone right now. Jun Linyuan frowned a little. Feng knew that it was time for him to make an excuse for his young master, so he suggested, Your Royal Highness, your celebration plan for Miss Feng Wu will soon take place. Would you like to go to the Feng family and see the effect in person? Jun Linyuan glared at him. My plan? Of course it's your plan. You stayed up all night for it, thought Feng. But he knew the Crown Prince too well, so he immediately said, I mean, young Lord Feng's plan. Anyway, once those people cashed in the vouchers, they would still need to come to the Crown Prince's residence. Everyone would know then that the Crown Prince had funded the event. Feng Sun said, Boss Jun, just come with us. I feel so sorry for Xiao Wu. She's my sister and you're my best friend. Won't you do me this favor? The Crown Prince rolled his eyes at him. Let go and I'll go with you. Fallen Star Yard. Feng Wu was cooking today. She had never felt the necessity of celebrating birthdays. As a result, only the people very close to her knew her birthday. She made 2 bowls of noodles, one for herself and the other for her mother. It was to thank the beautiful lady for giving birth to her. Then she moved on to the spicy dishes. Miss, the Zhou family is very busy today. Qiuling chatted with Feng Wu as she chopped up the peppers. Chapter 2432, They're Here, 1. Feng Wu loved Sichuan dishes, but she didn't have time to cook them too often. So she taught Qiuling how to make them. Qiuling was almost as good as Feng Wu, but Feng Wu was still the best. Therefore, Feng Wu decided to cook everything herself today. After chopping up the peppers, Qiuling moved on to sorting the vegetables. She told Feng Wu, the Zhou family is very busy today because it's Sua Qinghuan's birthday. She sounded upset when she said, every year, the Zhou family has a big celebration, telling everyone that it's her birthday. Feng Wu rolled her eyes. Why do you even care? Qiuling was already an excellent cultivator, and many people had been trying to acquire her. She could easily become a core disciple in any family or sect, but here she was, doing housework like a common maid. Qiuling added, I heard that His Royal Highness is going to celebrate Miss Sua's birthday with her. Feng Wu felt a dull pain in her chest. Is that so? Qiuling said, that's right. They all say that His Royal Highness is very close to Miss Sua and they'll soon be engaged. But how can that be? You're already engaged to His Royal Highness. She tried to comfort Feng Wu. Miss, please don't be sad. Feng Wu rolled her eyes at Qiuling. Why should I be sad? It's not like I actually like him. Is that so? Qiuling wasn't convinced. She noticed that Feng Wu was very serious today. Usually, she would chat happily while she was cooking. Their initial plan was to make 6 dishes, but Feng Wu came up with another, and made 10 in total. There was fish, meat, tofu, and more meat. Every dish was covered with red chili, and the aroma made one's mouth water. The beautiful lady had already taken her seat. Her slender hands were in her lap, and she had the most elegant posture, which reminded one of a white swan. However, she was practically drooling over the dishes, like a 5-year-old. Seeing this, Feng Wu felt her spirits lift. I wished Xiaoqi were here, but traveling with Grand Secretary Feng must be very helpful to him. However, the beautiful lady acted as if she couldn't hear Feng Wu. Feng Wu then picked out some food for her. Although she loved Feng Wu's food, she only had the appetite of a bird. Feng Wu then took off her apron. Till go get the elders. Chaoga said, I thought they never left the restricted area. Feng Wu chuckled. Till invite them, It'll be up to them whether they want to come here or not. After all, it was New Year's Eve. She handed the apron to Chowga and jumped out the window, soon disappearing into the night. In the restricted area, the noise outside only made this place feel more lonely. The three elders were Elder Breeze, Elder Jing, and Elder Grain. Chapter 2433. They're here, too. Where Feng Wu was concerned, Elder Breeze remained neutral, and Elder Jing was on her side. Elder Grain used to support Feng Yanfeng, but after what happened previously, his attitude toward Feng Wu had changed, though he would still pick on her from time to time. Eat outside? No way. Elder Grain shook his head when he heard the suggestion. Kiddo, we can't leave this place. Plus, you can't buy me off with a single meal. Feng Wu sat down in front of him and grinned. But didn't you tell Feng Yanfeng off for me already? Elder Grain said, that was because he crossed the line. I wasn't helping you. He crossed his arms and raised his chin. Feng Wu wanted to laugh, but she fought it back. She knew that the old man would be mad at her if she burst out laughing now. Making the trip here had cheered her up. She brushed away her frustrated thoughts and asked, are you really not coming? Today is my birthday. Birthday? Elder Jing was persuaded. Elder Grain said, I won't go even if you were getting married today. Feng Wu said, fine. Here's an appetizer for you. If you like it, there's more in Fallen Star Yard. She had packed a tiny portion of each dish, but they still looked very delicious. Seeing that she was leaving, Elder Grain grumbled, when are you going to pull yourself together? What? Feng Wu was confused. Elder Grain glanced at her and said contemptuously, your fiancé is celebrating another girl's birthday right now. Feng Wu was speechless. Why did she have to hear this even when she was no longer in Fallen Star Yard? She made a mental note to blame it on Jun Linyuan. Then she asked curiously, how do you know that it's Sua Qingluan's birthday today? Elder Grain said smugly, since your last visit, I've been in charge of gathering information. I know everything. He still held a grudge against Feng Yanfeng for trying to fool him. He couldn't be bothered to deal with Feng Yanfeng just yet, but that didn't mean that he had forgotten about it. Feng Wu said grumpily, why do you care about such gossip? If you have the time, work on your cultivation. The entire clan is counting on you lot. She didn't want to linger on the subject, so she turned to leave. Elder Grain said, I know what you're doing. Your man was stolen by some flirtatious woman, so you're lashing out at me. Feng Wu clenched her fists. She told herself to calm down, but she wanted to shout at Jun Linyuan. Elder Jing glared at Elder Grain. Why did you say that? The girl is already so sad, you should be gentle. What if she cries? Feng Wu wanted to tell them that she wasn't sad at all. Elder Grain grumbled, I just can't believe it. That Jun Linyuan boy is the most excellent cultivator ever, and he should marry our girl, not that Sua Qinglun. Elder Jing gave him some of the food Feng Wu brought. Just eat your dinner. Gosh, it's so good. Elder Grain's eyes widened. Chapter 2434. They're here, 3. When Feng Wu retuned to Fallen Star Yard, she heard cheerful activity inside. Feng Sun said, that's hilarious. Chowga, guess what? We all received her invitation. Chowga said, so, did you come here after you went to her party? Feng Sun said, of course not. We never went there. We weren't anywhere close to that house. Chowga said, but everyone has been saying how much His Royal Highness likes that sacred lady. Not only was he going to attend the party, he was also going to give her a gift. Feng Sun said, and what? Chowga said, and I heard that His Royal Highness was going to announce today that he was going to marry Sua Qingluan. Nonsense. Feng Sun grew agitated. Of course not. Boss Jun is going to marry Xiao Wu. He'll never marry that pretentious woman. Chowga looked at Jun Linyuan. Jun Linyuan glanced at her with his brooding eyes. Chowga sucked in her breath. She dared to bicker with Feng Sun, but she was intimidated whenever Jun Linyuan was present. She didn't even dare to meet his gaze, let alone question. So, Jun Linyuan hadn't gone to the Zhou family. Feng Wu raised her eyebrows. Who's out there? Me. Feng Wu walked in. She walked into the courtyard to meet Jun Linyuan's brooding eyes. She felt that he could see right through her. What was that supposed to mean? She looked away to avoid his gaze. Why are you here? She tried to walk past Jun Linyuan to sit on the other side, but Feng Sun wouldn't let her. He pressed her down in the empty chair next to Jun Linyuan and chuckled. Where do you think you're going? Here's your seat. Why should she sit next to Jun Linyuan? Feng Wu glared at Feng Sun and asked, Why must I sit here? TT was as if she had been labeled Jun Linyuan's girl. Feng Wu decided that she would like someone else. She couldn't afford to have such a connection with him. Of course you have to sit here. Feng Sun grinned. His Royal Highness is the most prestigious person here, so he has to take the host's seat. You're the birthday girl, so it only makes sense that you sit in the second best seat. Feng Wu blushed. Am I wrong? Where should you sit? Feng Sun looked confused. Feng Wu wondered if he was saying it on purpose. To avoid embarrassment, she changed the subject. Shouldn't all of you be with the Zhou family right now? Feng Sun snorted. He sat right next to Feng Wu and was very close. Feng Wu asked, What's that look on your face? Feng Sun sighed. Why do you even ask? For her birthday, Zhou Qingwan and her mother each sent us an invitation, but what about you? You didn't even send us a note. Feng Wu said, Well. Chapter 2435. They're here for. Feng Sun snorted. We wouldn't have come here if we hadn't felt sorry for you. We knew that you would be so lonely. Feng Wu said, But I'm not lonely at all. Feng Sun said, Of course you're lonely. All the influential figures of the imperial capital are at the Zhou residence, and you're all on your own. If we hadn't come here, your place would look abandoned. Feng Sun took a bite of the fish as he teased Feng Wu. This whole time, Feng Wu could feel a pair of eyes on her. She felt her cheeks heat up. But she didn't look back and pretended that she couldn't feel it. For some unknown reason, the more intense the gaze, the longer she spoke to Feng Sun. She said, Why do I get the feeling that you're here for my food instead of me? Feng Sun chuckled, awkwardly. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Soon, the 10 dishes were eaten up, and there was only some gravy left on the plates. Her eyes unexpectedly met Jun Linyuan's gaze. This time, he quickly looked away. Feng Wu was surprised. Would someone like him feel shy? Was he? Feng Wu couldn't be sure. But soon, the crown prince came back to his senses and he turned his aggressive gaze on Feng Wu again. Feng Wu now decided that she must have been seeing things. Of course, the man couldn't feel shy. While Xian Yi was observing them, Feng Sun was busy cleaning the plates. Didn't notice any interaction between Feng Wu and Jun Linyuan. Feng Sun said, Xiao Wu, you should really make some friends. We're the only people that would celebrate your birthday with you. Feng Wu wanted to smack him on the head. Feng Sun said, You don't even have a visitor from your clan. You really don't get along well with your family members. How blunt. He said, How about we make a bet? I'll lose if you have one visitor from your clan. How about that? Feng Wu wouldn't respond. Feng Sun said, If you win, I'll help you whenever you have to face Zhou Qingwan. And if I win, you have to do something for me. Feng Wu chuckled. Deal. Just then they heard footsteps outside. Xiao Wu, where's the food you promised us? Elder Jing walked in, followed by the reluctant Elder Grain. Feng Sun's eyes widened. Who are these people? Elder Jing and Elder Grain also stared at them in bewilderment. Before, when they were cut off from the outside world, they hardly knew anyone, but since they started gathering information, they couldn't avoid hearing these teenagers' names. Jun Linyuan? Elder Jing's eyes lit up. Jun Linyuan had obviously recognized them, and he looked amazed, but he soon regained his poise. Chapter 2436, Untitled. Even when facing the elders, the crown prince remained seated in the host seat. He nodded at the two old men. That was the most polite greeting he could offer. Elder Jing didn't think much of it, but Elder Grain was surprised. Wasn't Jun Linyuan the crown prince who had been seduced by that Zwa girl? Elder Grain stared at Jun Linyuan and wanted to give him a speech, but when he saw the look in his eyes, he backed off. Feng Wu glanced at Feng Sun. You lost. Feng Sun felt like he had just slapped himself. Elder Jing turned to look at Feng Wu. Can't you be a little more generous? You only gave us a mouthful of each dish, and we barely tasted everything before the plates were empty. Elder Grain was so grumpy. Elder Grain grumbled, No, I wasn't. Elder Jing said, Fine. You weren't. Someone else was too embarrassed to come here alone and forced me to come with him. Feng Lan Jing. Elder Jing stomped his foot in frustration. Elder Jing chuckled. Whatever you say. Xiao Wu, where's our food? Seeing that Elder Breeze wasn't here, Feng Wu knew that the chief elder must have stayed behind to guard the restricted area. She was speechless when she saw the empty plates on the table. Since when did Feng Sun lick the plates clean? TL cook something right now. Just wait here. Feng Sun, you chat with the elders. Chioling, come and help me in the kitchen. Feng Wu gave them a nod before going into the kitchen. Elder Jing looked amazed when he saw Chioling. That's a very talented girl. Elder Grain nodded. Yes, she's much better than some of the kids of our clan. I don't know what's happened to this clan, but the younger generation is such rubbish. Feng Sun patted Elder Grain on the shoulder. What should I call you? Elder Grain glared at him. How rude. Elder Jing looked Feng Sun up and down. You're Feng Biding's son, aren't you? How's your dad doing? Feng Sun asked, Do you know my dad? Elder Grain said, I even know your grandpa. We had an epic fight here in the imperial capital once. Didn't your grandpa tell you anything? Feng Sun stuttered, Are you Feng Chengu? That makes him Feng Lanjin. You finally figured it out? Elder Grain put a few peanuts into his mouth. I remember that many excellent cultivators died in that battle, and the rumor was that the two of you also. Elder Grain said, Do people still know us? Feng Sun said, Of course. You're two of the most famous cultivators ever. I didn't expect to see you alive. He was glad that the two old men liked Feng Wu. They could help her greatly in battle. Less than an hour later, Feng Wu started serving new dishes. Chapter 2437, Good News. She made another 10 dishes and made sure that there was enough to fill everyone's stomachs. After she sat down, Feng Sun glanced at her. Xiao Wu, today is your birthday, and we've prepared. Boom. Before he finished speaking, fireworks filled the sky. Feng Wu looked over her shoulder and saw the colorful fireworks. The pattern formed a few letters that said happy. What? Feng Wu didn't know who was firing them. Moreover, she was amazed that people of this age could actually use fireworks to form words. Jun Linyuan glanced at Feng Sun in satisfaction. Feng Sun was rendered speechless. He felt that something was off, because the first word was supposed to be Feng. Boom! Soon, the second wave of fireworks was in the sky, and formed the second part of the word, Ness. Feng Sun grew uneasy. Were those fireworks of the Zwa family? Meanwhile, Mrs. Zwa was panic-stricken. She had bragged that the crown prince would definitely be there. She even told the others that the crown prince would propose to Zwa Qingwan tonight, which was why all the guests were here. They were here for the crown prince. Even Mrs. Dugu was anxious. She led Mrs. Zwa to the side and asked, Will His Royal Highness come tonight? Mrs. Zwa said, I don't know. Mrs. Dugu said, You don't know? How can you not know? Didn't you say that the crown prince would definitely be here? We'll be so humiliated. Mrs. Zhua said, we sent an invitation to the Crown Prince's residence, and Qingwan says she sent one as well. Mrs. Dugu asked, then what did the Crown Prince's residence say? Mrs. Zhua fell silent. In fact, the Crown Prince's residence never gave any reply. She had only been so certain because Zhua Qingwan said so. Mrs. Dugu said, I hope they'll be here soon. Mrs. Tao is already asking questions. If His Royal Highness still doesn't come, the other families will grow doubtful as well. While the two of them talked behind a tree, several other guests were discussing among themselves. Do you think His Royal Highness will come tonight? Think so. Isn't the Crown Prince going to propose to Miss Qingwan? But we're already halfway through the banquet. Shouldn't His Royal Highness be here already? If everything turns out to be a lie, Miss Qingwan will be so humiliated. Mrs. Zhua was furious when she heard the conversation, but she couldn't retort. She was supposed to be the elegant lady of the Zhua family and couldn't shout and curse like a commoner. Moreover, they were right. His Royal Highness still hadn't arrived. Luan, why are you out here? Mrs. Dugu was surprised when she turned around and saw Zhua Qingwan. Under the flickering lights, Zhua Qingwan looked rather scary. Before Zhua Qingwan could say anything, Mrs. Zhua's maid arrived in a hurry and said, My lady, I have good news. Chapter 2438, Mistaken. My lady, I have good news. Granny Tao grabbed Mrs. Zhua's hand and was trembling in excitement. Mrs. Zhua took a deep breath. Is His Royal Highness here? Is he? Granny Tao shook her head. It's better than that. I heard that young Lord Feng has been preparing for a very big celebration, and it's happening tonight. All the common people of the imperial capital will take part. Mrs. Zhua shook with excitement as well. She took another deep breath and said, Keep going. Granny Tao said, Yes. The steward of the Northern Feng Mansion is instructing people to carry things to the central square. I saw some silver, gold, and spiritual stones. According to the steward, they're all going to be prizes. Mrs. Zhua asked, What prizes? Granny Tao said, I was confused at first as well, so I asked him. He said that young Lord Feng was asked to hold a birthday celebration tonight, and is even giving out gift envelopes. The vouchers can be cashed in on the spot, and the total value is 100 million coins. 100 million coins? Mrs. Zhua was so excited that she almost fainted. The Imperial Vault might not have that much cash. The total value of Zhua Qingwan's gifts was less than 1 million, but Feng Sun was giving out 100 million. The common folk have gone insane, and they're all heading for the central square, said Granny Tao. Mrs. Zhua said, Did you say a birthday party? Is young Lord Feng celebrating someone's birthday? Granny Tao said, That's right. Mrs. Zhua took a deep breath and forced herself to calm down. And today is? Granny Tao said, It's Miss Qingwan's birthday today. Mrs. Zhua said, But why would young Lord Feng? Mrs. Dugu chimed in. Don't you get it? Northern Feng Mansion can't be that rich. Mrs. Zhua nodded, still perplexed. Mrs. Dugu said, It means that young Lord Feng is doing it on someone else's behalf. Who else can come up with so much money? Mrs. Zhua still couldn't believe it. What do you mean? Mrs. Dugu nudged her. Stop making us envy you. Of course, it has to be His Royal Highness. Congratulations, Mrs. Zhua and Miss Qingwan. Mrs. Tao heard the conversation because Mrs. Dugu didn't try to keep her voice down. Mrs. Tao and Tao Qingqing stepped out to congratulate Mrs. Zhua and Zhua Qingwan. Zhua Qingwan's face remained indifferent, but one could tell that she was in a good mood. The other ladies followed suit and offered their congratulations. Mrs. Zhua was over the moon, but she feigned a modest tone and said, It can't be. We must be mistaken. Chapter 2439, That Heartless Boy. Mrs. Zhua said, Don't say that. His Royal Highness doesn't really know Luan. This can't be for her. I'm sure you're all mistaken. Mrs. Tao was almost devoured by jealousy, but she still had to offer her congratulations. The other ladies did the same. After all, jealousy was part of human nature. How lucky could Zhuo Qinghuan be? She was already so talented, but now, she had also earned the crown prince's affections. Tao Qingqing mumbled, "Why are they all saying that His Royal Highness is celebrating Miss Qinghuan's birthday? He could be celebrating Feng Wu's." Mrs. Tao nudged her with her elbow and gave her a warning glance. The Zhuo family is already one of the most influential families, and now, they've earned the crown prince's support. Do you know how formidable that is? Don't offend Zhuo Qinghuan. Just then, the fireworks went off. The resplendent fireworks formed two words in the night sky: happiness forever. Mrs. Dugu pointed at the sky and told Mrs. Zhuo, "Look, those words are lingering in the sky. They're another way of saying happy birthday, aren't they?" Mrs. Zhuo still feigned a humble tone. "Of course not. You guys are overthinking it." Mrs. Dugu smiled. "The fireworks are rising from the north and west gates, and the south and east gates haven't started yet. What do you think the remaining words will be?" "I think it'll be Miss Qinghuan's name," someone said. The celebration event today had attracted the attention of the entire imperial capital. Of course, Emperor Wu heard about it. Right now, he was standing on the tallest building and looking down at the entire city. He looked silently in the direction of the west and north gates. Gao, the eunuch, didn't dare disturb his master. He fetched a thick cape and put it around Emperor Wu's shoulders. Seeing the words in the sky, Emperor Wu said, "I heard that the Zhuo family is holding a big party, and everyone is there." Gao nodded. Emperor Wu smirked. "They're very popular, aren't they?" Gao lowered his head and didn't reply. Was told that Jun Linyuan prepared gifts for everyone to celebrate Zhuo Qinghuan's birthday? Emperor Wu frowned. Gao said, "That's what the rumor has been saying. He never did such a thing for Xiao Wu's birthday. By the way, when is her birthday?" Gao glanced at Emperor Wu. Emperor Wu smacked his head. "That's right. Today is her birthday as well. Her mother had a difficult labor when she was born, and I sent an imperial physician to her home. Has Jun Linyuan lost his mind?" Emperor Wu grew angry. He was so nice to Xiao Wu before, but now that Zhuo Qinghuan is back, he's all over her. What a heartless boy. Chapter 2440. It's not Qingluan. "I'm going." Emperor Wu stormed off. "Your Majesty, where are you going?" Gao asked curiously as he helped Emperor Wu change into a casual outfit. "Xiao Wu must be devastated now. My stupid son abandoned her. I can't live." With that, Emperor Wu put a hand to his chest. Gao thought, "I think you're just looking for an excuse to see Lady Ling." Of course, he didn't dare to say that out loud. Just then, fireworks rose above the south gate of the city and turned into two words: "Birthday girl." "Your Majesty, look." Gao pointed at the sky. Emperor Wu's face darkened. "So, I was right. He really is celebrating Zhuo Qinghuan's birthday. How can I have such a promiscuous son?" Gao cleared this throat, finding that description a little over the top. Meanwhile, in the Zhuo family, Zhuo Qinghuan stood in the center of the crowd, and her otherworldly beauty made her look like a fairy. Her clenched fists relaxed when she saw the two words. His Royal Highness must be celebrating her birthday. She could see the jealousy in everyone's eyes. Tao Qingqing snorted inwardly. That arrogant woman. It was just some fireworks. Big deal. At that thought, she became angry at Feng Wu. "You're so pretty and smart, how can you let Zhuo Qinghuan steal your fiancé? That's just dumb." On second thought, she wondered what would happen if Feng Wu's name appeared in the sky later. Everyone would be so shocked. Unfortunately, that wouldn't happen. Before Tao Qingqing was done criticizing Feng Wu in her head, fireworks rose into the sky above the east gate. Boom! Scarlet patterns filled the sky. It was so resplendent. Nothing could compare with it. But The crowd was astonished when they saw the name in the sky. Because the name in the sky wasn't Qingluan. It was Feng Wu. Feng Wu, it really is Feng Wu. Tao Qingqing was shocked. So was everyone else. Mrs. Dugu looked at Mrs. Mrs. Zhou felt like she had just been slapped. Her brain seemed to stop working. Everyone then slowly turned to look at Zhou Qingluan. What was the expression on her face? Deep down, she was furious and wanted to skin Feng Wu alive, but she forced herself to calm down because she was the graceful sacred lady of firmament, palace and a true phoenix. Feng Wu was nothing. Zhou Qingluan, you must calm down. Zhou Qingluan closed her eyes and took a few deep breaths. When she opened her eyes again, her face was no longer twitching. Chapter 2441, Yu Minji. Go to the East Gate and find out who's doing it. Can it be the Feng clan? Not everyone had lost their judgment. At that critical moment, Master Zhou made the call. That's right. Go to the East Gate and see if the Feng clan is setting off all the fireworks. The Dugu family and the Zhou family were allies. If the Zhou family was humiliated, the Dugu family would become a laughingstock as well. Therefore Mrs. Dugu stepped out to help Master Zhou. However, they couldn't change what everyone thought. The expression in the eyes of other people was already changing when they looked at Zhou Qingluan. Tao Qingqing was the most excited. For a moment she thought she was blessed. Otherwise, why would things turn out the way she wanted? Mom, did you see it? She dragged Mrs. Tao to a quiet corner and whispered, it was Feng Wu's name in the sky. Third, that Prince Yu is studying under Black Dragon King at the moment and has been making amazing progress. Yu was told that Miss Qingluan went to challenge Yu Minji, but he forced her to surrender after 3 stances. Isn't Miss Qingluan supposed to be a junior spiritual king? 3 stances. What level is Prince Yu at, then? The Black Dragon King is the guardian of the Dark Court. If Prince Yu is studying under him, how formidable is he? Zhou Qingluan's face was livid. She was glad when she heard that the fireworks weren't from the Crown Prince. It proved that His Royal Highness still cared about her. Feng Wu hadn't stolen him away. But why was Yu Minji involved? Moreover, why Yu Minji? If Jun Linyuan was the most brilliant teenager that ever existed, then Yu Minji was the second best. Zhou Qingluan wanted the best, but she hated to think that Feng Wu, the girl she loathed, was courted by Yu Minji, an almost equally excellent boy. She wouldn't allow it. Chapter 2442, Jun Linyuan the Sovereign. Zhou Qingluan took a deep breath. She had to calm down. She needed to figure out a way to force Feng Wu out of this game and destroy her for good. At the same time, Fallen Star Yard. When Feng Wu's name appeared in the sky, Jun Linyuan stared at Feng Sun. Feng Sun was equally perplexed. He felt that something was off when the fireworks rose above the north gate. Because his order was to set it off in the central square. And Feng Sun was even more confused when he saw the words in the sky. Because they weren't his design. Feng Sun and Jun Linyuan looked at each other in bewilderment. Jun Linyuan's fireworks would also form some words. And they were. Feng Sun glanced at Boss Jun. Jun Linyuan had written those words himself. Feng Sun was sure that Feng Wu would be so excited. Xiao Wu, that's so nice. Chaoga was over the moon. Happiness forever, birthday girl Feng Wu. That's such a wonderful wish. The others nodded as well. Elder Grain was intrigued, but he was too proud to ask the question. So he nudged Elder Jing with his elbow. Elder Jing rolled his eyes at him. Elder Grain nudged him again. Elder Jing was speechless. He had no choice but to ask, Xiao Wu, who's setting off the fireworks? Is it? He glanced at the Crown Prince. Boom! At that moment, the fireworks went off in all 4 directions before they formed a name in the sky. Yu Minji. Everyone saw it. Yu Minji. The Crown Prince glared at Feng Sun with a murderous look in his eyes. Feng Sun wanted to cry. He had no idea that Yuminji would join the competition. That was why the fireworks had started 3 minutes too early and had the wrong words. Boss Jun, Fong Sun didn't know what to say. He made a mental note to find Yuminji later and kick his ass. Shut up. Jun Linyuan glared at him. Fong Sun rose to his feet. Teal go. But right at that moment. Thump. There was another loud bang. The fireworks this time were even louder and more resplendent than Yuminji's. What the hell? Feng Wu was baffled by everything that had happened. She just wanted a peaceful birthday, but why wouldn't these people let her have it? And it was getting worse. Because the words formed by the fireworks were astonishing. Jun Linyuan, the sovereign, descends to the world. The handwriting contained so much force that the words looked like they had been carved into the sky. Residents of the imperial capital would probably remember it forever. The Zhou family. More fireworks. They're even better than before. Yu Minji's fireworks were amazing. Only a handful of people in the Zhenwu Empire could make them. Who's setting off these ones then? The sovereign descends to the world? Gosh, can it be? Chapter 2443, Feng Wu the Phoenix. Jun Linyuan, the sovereign, descends to the world? Gosh, can it be? Can it be from His Royal Highness? Has His Royal Highness joined the game? Meanwhile, Mu Yaoyao ran up to Zhou Qingwan and shouted excitedly, Sister Qingwan, His Royal Highness created those fireworks for you. Zhou Qingwan remained indifferent, as if nothing could affect her. The common people of the imperial capital were shocked by everything that was happening. They had been eating dinner with their families at home when all the noise went off. In Willow Alley. Wang, come out here. Get your whole family. I have good news. Chen? What good news? Chen was a cart driver and had always been well informed. Some big shot is giving out gift envelopes today. At the central square. Let's go. What's the occasion? What do you think? His Royal Highness is celebrating Miss Qingwan's birthday, and the gifts will be worth 100 million in total. 100 million? Let's go. Many families had heard similar news, and they all headed for the central square. The Feng clan. Lady Wang and Feng Yanfeng were having dinner with Feng Iran and Feng Sang. Of course, they all heard the news as well. Feng Yanfeng said, Today is Xiao Wu's birthday. Lady Wang glared at him. They were going to kick Feng Wu out of the family. Why was he still calling her Xiao Wu? Xiao Wu and Miss Qingwan's birthdays are on the same day. Wouldn't all those fireworks offend Miss Qingwan? Feng Yanfeng was a little scared of Zhou Qingwan. Lady Wang snorted. No one can steal Zhou Qingwan's spotlight. Feng Wu just isn't important enough to offend her. Feng Yiran chimed in, Father, don't worry. His Royal Highness is in love with Zhou Qingwan, and Feng Wu can't change that. See? It says Jun Linyuan the sovereign descends to the world now. The next sentence will probably be Qingwan the Phoenix is by his side. Feng Sang rolled her eyes at him. That doesn't even rhyme. It should be. The second round of fireworks went off before she could finish. Feng Sang was pleasantly surprised. It was right on cue. Was she the lucky girl? Would all her wishes come true then? But soon she knew that she wasn't the lucky girl, but Feng Wu. Because she saw the sentence in the sky. Feng Wu the Phoenix soars above the land. The first line was still in the sky when this line appeared. Feng Wu couldn't help but curse under her breath. What about the Zhou family? Everyone had become very quiet. One could even hear the sound of leaves falling on the ground. What an embarrassing moment. It wasn't Zhou Qingwan. It was never going to be her. Rather, it was Feng Wu. The girl whom so many people had slandered before. Tao Qingqing put a hand over her mouth, fearing that her heart would jump out at any moment. Meanwhile, Zhou Qingwan. Chapter 2444, How can it be Feng Wu? Meanwhile, Zhou Qingwan that she was completely baffled. For the first time in her life, her head was completely blank. The blow was so hard that she didn't know how to react. How could it be Fengwu? Wan. Mrs. Zhou rushed to her side and embraced her, fearing that she might pass out. Zhou Qingwan slowly came back to her senses, and her eyes refocused. She was shocked by the looks the others gave her. She panicked. She had never panicked after she destroyed Feng Wu's true phoenix blood, but now, she was panic-stricken. She was Zhou Qingwan. She was the sacred lady of Firmament Palace and the only one with true phoenix blood. She shouldn't panic. She regained her posture and looked perfectly calm again. Mrs. Zhou was still grumbling. Who's doing it? Someone must be setting off these fireworks under the guise of His Royal Highness's name. That's right. Someone is setting His Royal Highness up. Jun Linyuan the Sovereign descends to the world? His Royal Highness is still the Crown Prince. That line is so provoking. Are they trying to turn His Majesty against His Royal Highness? And what is Feng Wu the Phoenix soars above the land supposed to mean? Luan is the one his mother. Be careful with your choice of words. Zhou Qingwan wanted to tell Mrs. Zhou to shut up, but she thought that wasn't the words a future Empress would use, so she toned it down a little. Mrs. Zhou was very scared of Zhou Qingwan. Hearing that, she immediately shut up. However, she didn't know what she had done wrong. Zhou Qingwan looked at Dugu Menghai, the eldest son of the Dugu family. Dugu Menghai was the vice-captain of the Imperial Guards who worked under Qin Yan, the captain who was always by the Emperor's side. It's okay to celebrate Feng Wu's birthday, but someone is pretending to be the Crown Prince and incriminating him for treason. I can't overlook it. Brother Menghai, please look into it now. Of course. I'll be on my way. Dugu Menghai immediately went to carry out that order. Mrs. Tao studied Zhou Qingwan. How clever. She immediately concluded that someone was working against His Royal Highness. Not only did she save herself from the embarrassment, she blamed Feng Wu as well. However, when she recalled what Feng Wu had done in the Gu family, she felt that Feng Wu was still the smarter one. Many people depended on the Zhou family, so in a moment like this, they jumped out to defend the family. Miss Qingwan is right. Someone must be doing it on purpose. Of all the girls out there, they have to mention Feng Wu's name. I'm sure she's involved. Does Feng Wu still hold a grudge against Miss Qingwan for what happened back then, so she's using this opportunity to disgust her? What happened back then? Don't you know? 5 years ago, 2 people had the true phoenix blood. One was Miss Qingwan and the other one was Feng Wu, but Feng Wu destroyed her own blood and became useless. She must hate Miss Qingwan after that. So true. Feng Wu must be involved. We have to get to the bottom of it. Chapter 2445. Mysterious Father of the Emperor. Tao Qingying smirked. Get to the bottom of what? The Crown Prince had protected Feng Wu against the Gu family. It was so obvious that he was fond of her. That's what Qingwan should stop daydreaming. She gave Zhou Qingwan a mocking glance. It just so happened that Zhou Qingwan glanced in her direction at that moment. Tao Qingqing was scared out of her wits. She turned the other way, and her face lost all color. Mrs. Tao shook her head in resignation. Meanwhile, on the street, Emperor Wu was outside when he saw the words. Jun Linyuan the Sovereign descends to the world and Feng Wu the Phoenix soars above the land. Emperor Wu stood in the busy street and looked at the central square from afar. He narrowed his eyes when he read the words. Gao and Qin Yan looked at each other in astonishment. I'll look into it, said Qin Yan. Emperor Wu smiled a little. Of course it has to be that boy. Who else is bold enough to say such a thing? The sovereign descends to the world? He just can't wait to take the throne, can he? Thought Emperor Wu. Neither Gao nor Qin Yan dared to utter a word. However, the fury they expected never came. Emperor Wu said quietly, Jun Linyuan the Sovereign descends to the world and Feng Wu the Phoenix soars above the land. That's quite a match. What a clever boy. That settled everything. Gao and Qin Yan's clothes were soaked in sweat. I thought he had abandoned Xiao Wu, but here he is, planning something big. My dear son is so smart, isn't he? No one answered. When he turned around to see the two scared subordinates, he snapped, "Grow some balls." Emperor Wu had been furious when he first saw the words. "Jun Linyuan, are you going to usurp the throne now?" But then he remembered something. Before his father abdicated, he had summoned Emperor Wu to the study and told him something. The throne was meant for your younger brother because he's better than you. Emperor Wu worshipped his wise father, and that comment almost broke him. However, there was a but. But you have an excellent son, so you're going to guard the throne for him for 20 years. After that, it'll be his. Emperor Wu was overwhelmed by all the information. Father, I promise you that I'll pass the throne to Jun Linyuan. The old man gave him a long look and said indifferently, if he wants it. The young Emperor Wu almost cried. He and his brother had fought tooth and nail for the throne, but what did his father say? Seeing that he was upset, his father patted him on the shoulder. It's a family tradition. We only get a genius every other generation. Your generation just isn't lucky enough. Chapter 2446, His Majesty the Onlooker. Emperor Wu realized that both his father and son were geniuses, making him the only idiot in between. He almost wanted to cry. That was why he had indulged Jun Linyuan all these years. He was only holding the throne for him. What a sad story. Emperor Wu waved off the old memories. At least his son was indeed a genius, proving his own wise father correct. Keep moving. He glanced at Gao and Qin Yan. Everyone had gathered in the central square. It was almost impossible for Emperor Wu to get through. Of course, if Qin Yan were to force his way in, no one would be able to stop them. But Emperor Wu wouldn't let him. It's New Year's Eve. Let them enjoy tonight, said Emperor Wu. A young man saw them and asked curiously, Are you here for the lucky draw as well? Emperor Wu asked, What lucky draw? The young man known as Chen said excitedly, Don't you know? Northern Feng Mansion is giving out gifts today. Join the queue. Qin Yan wanted to punish the man for talking to the emperor that way, but Chen had already dragged Emperor Wu into the queue. Seeing that the emperor was glad to join the game, Qin Yan didn't object. He and Gao stayed right next to Emperor Wu on either side, protecting the most important figure of the empire. Chen had no idea that he had narrowly escaped death. I guess you have no idea that it's the birthdays of two people today, said Chen. One is the sacred lady of Firmament Palace, and the other is the useless daughter of the Feng family. Emperor Wu said, You're quite well informed, aren't you? Chen said, Of course. I subscribe to Capital Gossip, and it has everything. By the way, do you know who Miss Qingluan and Miss Feng Wu are? Emperor Wu wanted to say no, but seeing how talkative the young man was, he nodded. I've heard those names. Chen said, In that case, I won't go into detail. In short, they have the same birthday and are competing for the same man, our crown prince. How exciting is that? Everyone thought that His Royal Highness would be celebrating Miss Qingluan's birthday, but as it turns out, he did something else. Do you know what he did? Emperor Wu pointed at the words in the sky that hadn't dissipated yet. Chen said, That's right. It sounds like they're perfect for each other, doesn't it? I've been their supporter from the very beginning. Emperor Wu wanted to laugh, but he only nodded and listened to the young man. Chen said, That is to say, these gifts are from His Royal Highness. They're his way to express his feelings for Miss Feng Wu. Isn't it exciting? Emperor Wu said, Yes, of course. Chen said, His Royal Highness is so generous. The total value of these gifts is 100 million coins. I don't think there's that much cash in His Majesty's treasury. Chapter 2447, His Majesty and 2 bags of rice. Emperor Wu glanced at Chen. The young man had no idea how close he was to death. He told Emperor Wu, Enough chit-chat. Here's how you play. They're giving out 10 rounds of gift envelopes at 15-minute intervals. All envelopes contain vouchers, and they represent various gifts. Some can be exchanged for silver and gold coins, and others can give you spiritual stones, condiments, and food. You can cash them in right here and take everything home with you. Do you know what's the most important prize? Emperor Wu asked. What is it? It's a collection of 8 words. Qin said excitedly. On the back of each voucher, there's a word. There are 8 different words in total, and if you can find all 8 of them, you can exchange them for 999 silver coins. Emperor Wu said, That's a lot. You don't say. His Royal Highness is so generous. When that Miss Qinghuan gave out gift envelopes, her prizes were so petty. His Royal Highness's gifts are 100 times better. Back then, some people said that Miss Feng Wu competed for the house which Miss Wu was giving out as a gift. What were they thinking? She can receive much better gifts from His Royal Highness. Emperor Wu was baffled. He looked over his shoulder at Gao and wondered when public opinion had changed. Zhou Qinghuan had seemed much more popular than Feng Wu before. Gao was equally confused. Emperor Wu asked, You think very highly of Feng Wu, don't you? Qin said, I'm not the only one. Look, Prince Yu of the Dark Court set off fireworks to express his love for Miss Feng Wu, which goes to show how amazing she is. She's only 14, but she's already a level 6 spiritual lord. Emperor Wu smiled proudly. He knew that Feng Wu's level was even higher than that. Plus, Miss Feng Wu is so pretty. I wonder how beautiful her mother has to be. Emperor Wu wanted to announce that he had met her mother in person. 'Twas so mad when I saw Prince Yu's fireworks. Luckily, His Royal Highnesses are much better, and they outshine Prince Yu's. Emperor Wu wondered if this could count as some sort of patriotism. Emperor Wu started gathering gift envelopes and tried to find all 8 words. However, he just wasn't lucky enough. Chen had much better luck. He soon found all 8 words, cashed them in for 999 silver coins, and went back home. In the end, Emperor Wu only received 2 bags of rice. He had Qin Yan carry them for him, and it was quite a funny picture. Emperor Wu laughed when he saw the look on Qin Yan's face. Your Majesty, are we really going back with the rice? Gao asked in bewilderment. Going back? Not yet. We're going to the Feng family. Emperor Wu marched off. The Feng clan. Fallen Star Yard. Everyone was baffled when they saw the lines in the sky. Apart from Feng Sun and his 2 friends. What's that supposed to mean? Elder Jing couldn't believe his eyes. Who did it? Are they trying to get Xiao Wu killed? Feng Sun said, Elder Jing, why do you say that? I would never harm my own sister. Elder Jing said, So, you're the culprit. Have you lost your mind? Feng Sun asked, Why do you say that? Chapter 2448. Do you not know? Feng Sun asked, Why do you say that? Elder Jing pointed at the sky with a shaking finger. Can you read? You can't use such expressions freely. You're going to get Xiao Wu killed. Elder Grain was equally angry and wanted to slap Feng Sun. Hey, not my face. Feng Sun took off when he saw that the 2 elders were coming after him. Meanwhile, Feng Wu didn't know how she should react. She looked up at the sky, where the words were still twinkling. Jun Linyuan the sovereign descends to the world and Feng Wu the phoenix soars above the land. That was a very ambitious statement. Feng Wu couldn't begin to describe her feelings. She was angry, excited, proud, and abashed at the same time. The feelings almost overwhelmed her. She took a deep breath to clear her mind and wouldn't let herself be carried away by her emotions. She decided that Feng Sun had to be the culprit and that he was trying to make fun of her and the crown prince like he used to. At that thought, she threw a dirty look at Feng Sun. She would get back at him later. Meanwhile, Feng Sun was running away from the 2 elders as he shouted, Don't hit me. I didn't come up with those lines. It was Jay. He was about to say the name, when a steamed bun flew into his mouth, shutting him up. You're all here. They were still chasing and shouting when they heard the voice. Everyone looked up and saw Emperor Wu standing in the doorway. Qin Yan and Gao were with him as usual. It was just that. There were 2 bags of rice in Qin Yan's hands, which was an unusual scene. Your Majesty? To what do we owe this honor? Feng Wu was genuinely surprised to see Emperor Wu, but she reacted quickly and greeted him. Emperor Wu waved at her. I'm just taking a walk. I heard all the noise and thought I should take a look. I had no idea that it's your house. Feng Wu wanted to roll her eyes at him. Liar. With the defense formation she had set up, people outside wouldn't be able to hear any noise in the courtyard. But since the emperor had spoken, she decided to take his word for it. However, she was baffled when Qin Yan handed her the rice. Your Majesty, what's this about? Everyone looked from Emperor Wu to the rice and was confused. Ahem. Emperor Wu cleared his throat and said with a smile, someone was giving out gift envelopes on my way here, and I was lucky enough to receive the rice as a gift. I guess it's a blessing from above, awarding me for feeding all the people of the empire. It's quite meaningful, so I thought I could give it to you as a birthday present. Kiddo, aren't you happy? What else could Feng Wu say? She smiled. Thank you, Your Majesty. Emperor Wu said, don't mention it. Feng Wu asked, but who would give out gift envelopes at this late hour? Emperor Wu gave her a strange look. Feng Wu looked back at him in confusion. Emperor Wu looked from Jun Linyuan to Feng Wu and asked, you mean you don't know? Chapter 2449. Who wrote them? Feng Wu was confused. What should I know? Emperor Wu said, the lucky draw. Feng Wu asked, what lucky draw? Emperor Wu pointed at the rice. The lucky draw that's being carried out in your name. And do you see the lines in the sky? Feng Wu nodded. Emperor Wu lowered his voice. All the envelopes contain a word, and there are 8 in total that say together, Jun Linyuan the Sovereign, Feng Wu the True Phoenix. If one collects all 8, they can exchange them for 999 silver coins. I tried to find them all but failed. What a shame. Feng Wu said, did you say to collect all 8 words? Emperor Wu nodded. Feng Wu glared at Feng Sun. So, that was what it was about. Feng Sun felt a chill run down his spine. He moved closer and grinned at Feng Wu. Xiao Wu, are you mad? Feng Wu glared at him. You're making fun of me. Feng Sun grew anxious. Boss Jun would kick his ass if he heard that. Feng Sun immediately said, I would never do that. Why would I do such a thing? Feng Wu said, never? What words did I give you when you came to me for ideas? I never said any of that. Feng Sun said, the envelopes are for a birthday celebration. What words did you give me? Patriotic and diligent? They just don't suit the mood. Feng Wu said, I thought His Majesty was giving out gift envelopes on New Year's Eve. Emperor Wu was perplexed. Feng Sun said, how could it be His Majesty? They're for celebrating your birthday. Feng Wu said, but you didn't tell me what you were going to use. If she had known, she would never have let Feng Sun use those words. Yes, Zhou Qingwan would be furious when she saw it and might acknowledge that Jun Linyuan was in love with Feng Wu. That way, she would be able to finish the 11th trial. However, it would also mean that Feng Wu herself was admitting to her relationship with Jun Linyuan. The entire imperial capital will think that there's something going on between me and His Royal Highness. You? Feng Wu told the 2 elders, do whatever you want with him. Elder Jing and Elder Grain were already chasing Feng Sun. Upon hearing what Feng Wu said, however, they both stopped. Elder Jing asked Feng Wu, aren't you still engaged? What's wrong with letting people know about it? It would be very wrong. Feng Wu glared at Feng Sun. Feng Sun didn't know what to do. It wasn't his fault. The Crown Prince hadn't liked the words Feng Wu suggested, so he wrote those words himself. He was so pleased with what he came up with that he couldn't stop smiling. Feng Sun hated to admit that it was a very foolish smile. He had never seen Jun Linyuan smile like that. Feng Wu grabbed Feng Sun. Did you write those words? Feng Sun said, of course not. Do you think I have such excellent handwriting? Feng Wu said, who wrote them then? Chapter 2450. Arrest. Feng Sun said, "It wasn't me." He knew that Boss Jun would kill him if he told the truth. Emperor Wu shook his head when he heard the bickering. He then looked around the courtyard, as if he was searching for someone. Soon, he found the person he was looking for. He was astonished. Lady Ling was even more beautiful than he remembered. Just then they heard footsteps outside. It sounded like a trained army. Thump, 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 thump. Someone pounded on the front gate. Emperor Wu frowned. He barely had time to look at his goddess. How dare these people disturb him? The knocking went on and became louder. Someone shouted, "Open up! Surround Fallen Star Yard." Who was that? Everyone was perplexed. Feng Wu said, "Wait here. I'll have a look." Feng Wu opened the gate and saw hundreds of people outside. Their armor shone coldly in the torchlight. 2 men led the team. One of them was dressed like a general and had a fierce look in his eyes. He stared at Feng Wu the moment she opened the door. It was obvious that she was his target. An unwelcome guest. Feng Wu frowned and looked at Feng Yanfeng, who was standing next to the general. He had hidden away in his own house ever since the incident with Lady Gu, but he couldn't do that anymore. He had no idea what visitors Fallen Star Yard had at the moment. He stared at Feng Wu and said, "How could you do such a thing?" Feng Wu had no intention of letting them in. Even when she saw all the heavily armed soldiers, she remained perfectly calm. She sighed in resignation when she said to Feng Yanfeng, "Today is New Year's Eve and my birthday. Can't you let me have a peaceful evening? What's this all about?" Feng Yanfeng gloated at Feng Wu's predicament. He said in an authoritative tone, "Xiao Wu, you've done the most unspeakable thing. Even I can't protect you now. I'm so disappointed in you." Feng Wu didn't know what to say. Before she could say anything, the general spoke. "Feng Wu, you're suspected of usurping the throne. I'm going to arrest you now. If you resist, I'm going to kill you." Usurping the throne. Feng Wu wanted to laugh. Why would she want the throne? She said, "And you are?" Feng Yanfeng said, "This is General Dugu Menghai, the heir to the Dugu family and the vice-captain of the Imperial Guards." Feng Wu said, "I see. Vice-Captain Dugu, is it?" Dugu Menghai's face darkened. Chapter 2451. Elder Grain said so. Most people would omit the vice when they addressed him. Feng Wu smiled at him. "Vice-Captain. How impressive. I'm so scared." She thought, "Your captain is holding bags of rice in my yard. Would you like to meet him?" If Dugu Menghai could read her mind, he would have fled the scene. But he couldn't, so he remained very arrogant. "Take her down." Although Dugu Menghai was amazed by how pretty Feng Wu was, he didn't feel anything for her because to him, power was the most important thing. "Wait," Feng Yanfeng interjected. He then turned to stare at Feng Wu. "Xiao Wu, if you still care about your family, sign this." Feng Wu glanced at the paper. "What's that?" Feng Yanfeng said, "It's an agreement saying that you'll leave the clan for good." Feng Wu said, "What agreement?" Feng Yanfeng gestured at Dugu Menghai, asking him to wait a moment. He then walked up to Feng Wu and said, "Xiao Wu, your crime is unforgivable. You're trying to usurp the throne. The Feng clan has lived peacefully for generations, and I can't let you bring everyone down with you. If you still have any conscience at all, you should give everyone a chance." Feng Wu looked from the paper to Feng Yanfeng and smiled. "So, you want me to voluntarily sign this agreement? If anything goes wrong in the future, you won't need to take any responsibility. Is that right?" Feng Yanfeng said, "Xiao Wu, stop stalling and sign it." Feng Wu asked, "Removing a member from the clan is a major decision. Have you asked the elders yet?" Feng Yanfeng hadn't because everything had happened too suddenly and he didn't have the time. He decided that Feng Wu would never get to talk to the 3 elders, and she would have to take his word for it. He feigned a sympathetic tone. "Xiao Wu, there's no hope left for you. All the elders agree with me, and Elder Grain even said—" Feng Wu fought back her laughter and said with a straight face, "What did Elder Grain say?" Feng Yanfeng said, Elder Grain called you a disloyal and immoral member of the clan. You'll only destroy us if you stay here. And there's more. Feng Wu glanced in the direction of the yard and smiled a little. What else? Feng Yanfeng sighed. Elder Grain said that we should have kicked you out 5 years ago. He said that keeping you here was the biggest mistake he ever made. Feng Wu said, Is that so? Did Elder Grain really say that? You're not making it up, are you? Feng Yanfeng glared at Feng Wu. Elder Grain said so himself. Feng Wu, stop stalling and sign it. From now on, you'll have nothing to do with the Feng clan. Chapter 2452, Face Slapping 1. Just then, a person charged out of Fallen Star Yard and kicked Feng Yanfeng in the stomach. What a forceful kick. Feng Yanfeng immediately flew backward. Behind him was a team of soldiers. Soldiers with shiny armor and steel blades. Therefore, when Feng Yanfeng flew backward, the soldiers behind him fell like dominoes. They ended up piling on top of one another, and Feng Yanfeng landed on top of that little hill. The impact cleared a path wide enough for 5 people to walk shoulder to shoulder. The soldiers were all baffled by the sudden turn of events. They all stared at the newcomer. Next to Feng Wu was a powerful old man. He was shouting angrily. He charged at Feng Yanfeng, lifted him off the ground, and bellowed, What did you just say? Keeping Feng Wu is my biggest regret? I agreed to kick Feng Wu out. Feng Yanfeng was utterly confused when he was kicked away, but when he saw Elder Grain, he was astonished. Elder Grain? He didn't know what to say. The old man was the last person he expected to see here. Elder Grain punched him in the stomach. Tell me, when did I agree to kick Feng Wu out? Feng Yanfeng was so embarrassed. If the ground could open up right now, he would hide in it. Seeing that Elder Grain was going to hit him again, Feng Yanfeng surrendered. No, you didn't say any of that. Elder Grain threw Feng Yanfeng to the ground, still looking annoyed. Feng Wu crossed her arms and smiled at Feng Yanfeng. You just said that Elder Grain wants to kick me out, but now you're saying that he didn't say it. Uncle, which is it? Feng Yanfeng was so embarrassed and wished that he could run back home. But as the head of the Feng clan, he couldn't do that. No one came to help him, so he had to struggle to his feet. He didn't have time to respond to Feng Wu's mocking. Right now, he had to focus on appeasing Elder Grain. Elder Grain, didn't you say you want to kick Feng Wu out? I got carried away, and that was why I said those things without asking for your permission first. Elder Grain shouted, When did I say that? I didn't. Feng Yanfeng cringed, but he answered, You said so yourself when I returned from the grassland. Elder Grain was embarrassed. Back then, he didn't know Feng Wu and was indifferent to the suggestion of kicking her out, but that was a long time ago. He glared at Feng Yanfeng. That was a long time ago. Things have changed. Feng Yanfeng wanted to cry. It was less than a month ago. Chapter 2453, Face Slapping 2. Elder Grain, why are you here? Feng Yanfeng asked gingerly. Elder Grain bellowed at him, Feng Yanfeng, you're heartless. Do you know what day it is today? It's Xiao Wu's birthday. You left her alone in her courtyard. Is that what an uncle is supposed to do? Why am I here? I'm celebrating her birthday. Feng Yanfeng didn't even dare to wipe off the spit that was on his face. He was scared out of his wits when he heard what Elder Grain said. If he was celebrating Feng Wu's birthday, that meant that he had to be very close to Feng Wu. That's right. We're here for Xiao Wu's birthday. Elder Jing came out and stood next to Elder Grain. Elder Jing. Feng Yanfeng's pupils contracted. Elder Grain was known for his mood swings and wasn't exactly a reliable character. Elder Jing, on the other hand, was very level-headed. Feng Yanfeng's heart sank when he heard what Elder Jing said. Dugu Menghai glanced at Feng Yanfeng. Their plan was to get Feng Wu to sign the agreement. After that, he would arrest her and put her in jail. Once there, she would soon be executed. But now, the 2 elders were involved. Dugu Menghai nodded to them and briefly showed them his token. I'm sorry to have ruined your evening, but Feng Wu has committed a serious crime, and I have to take her away. Now. Oh my, listen to that authoritative tone. So it's you, Vice Captain Dugu. Feng Sun walked out with a grin on his face. Feng Sun. Dugu Menghai frowned. Feng Sun was the young lord of Northern Feng Mansion. Despite his prestigious status, he didn't have much actual power. Therefore, Dugu Menghai didn't feel intimidated. What worried him was Feng Sun's friend, Jun Linyuan. If he was here, would Jun Linyuan be inside as well? Dugu Menghai shook his head. If the crown prince really was visiting someone, it had to be Zhou Qingluan. Why would he be here in Fallen Star Yard? Therefore, he said matter-of-factly, young Lord Feng Wu's crime is punishable by death, and that's beyond you. Please move aside. Feng Sun smiled. What crime is it? Tell me about it. Otherwise, I won't let you leave even if you want to. Dugu Menghai said, Feng Sun, are you obstructing official business now? Feng Sun cupped his fist to show respect to the authority Dugu Menghai represented before he said, am the most loyal member of the court, why would I do such a thing? The problem is, I think you're abusing your power for personal gain. Dugu Menghai glared at Feng Sun. The Zhou family is looking everywhere for you. You should be at their party now. Chapter 2454, Face Slapping 3. Feng Sun laughed. Why should I go? Just because they invited me? Dugu Menghai said, Feng Sun, are you going to support Feng Wu then? Feng Sun said, you're not taking her anywhere unless you give me a reason I can accept. Dugu Menghai knew that he had to do something to persuade Feng Sun. He pointed at the lines in the sky. Do you see that? Feng Sun said, please. So what? Dugu Menghai said, so what? Do you know what it means? Feng Sun said, what does it mean? Dugu Menghai shouted, stop playing dumb. Those words are proof that Feng Wu wants to usurp the throne. I can understand that Feng Wu wants to be connected to His Royal Highness. All girls do. But the sovereign in the land? She's slandering His Royal Highness. How dare you try to protect her? Do you have a death wish? Feng Sun rolled his eyes. Dugu Menghai, who told you that Feng Wu set off those fireworks? Dugu Menghai snorted. We caught the suspect and he admitted that Feng Wu is the mastermind behind the fireworks. She can't deny it. Proof? Suspect? Feng Sun wanted to laugh. How ridiculous. Feng Wu had no idea that they were going to celebrate her birthday today. She didn't know anything about their plan. But this man was saying that he had some sort of proof and wanted to arrest her. It was preposterous. Feng Sun felt so sorry for Feng Wu because he could only imagine how much she had gone through. Dugu Menghai, you're dead? He glared at Dugu Menghai. Dugu Menghai smirked. You don't know what you're talking about. Feng Sun, you're going down. The person who set off the fireworks is the steward of your family. The Dugu family had been trying to bring down Northern Feng Mansion, but Northern Feng General was such an upright man that they never had the chance. But right now, they felt that they had the perfect opportunity. Even if they couldn't destroy Northern Feng Mansion, taking down Feng Sun would be a great achievement as well. But then, Dugu Menghai saw a man coming out of the courtyard. The Crown Prince. Dugu Menghai couldn't believe his eyes. He was even more surprised than Feng Yanfeng was when he saw Elder Grain. Your Royal Highness? Why you here? Aren't you taking care of governmental affairs in your residence? All those people they sent to the Crown Prince's residence had come back with the news saying that the Crown Prince was still busy. But here he was. Dugu Menghai's eyes popped out. He had a very bad feeling and his heart sank. Chapter 2455, Face Slapping 4. No, this can't be happening. Dugu Menghai wouldn't give up his last bit of hope. Your Royal Highness, Feng Wu is slandering you. I've reported it to His Majesty, and she will be punished. Dugu Menghai trembled under Jun Linyuan's cold gaze. He knew that he had to follow the Crown Prince's order, so he used Emperor Wu as an excuse instead. He would probably cry if he knew that Emperor Wu was right inside. The energy Jun Linyuan gave off made everyone shiver. He said in a decisive tone, "I wrote them." "What?" Dugu Menghai didn't get it. The crown prince smirked and repeated, "I wrote the lines. Do you have a problem with that?" "What?" This time, Dugu Menghai finally understood. And he wished that he hadn't heard it. Because the truth was too scary. "Your Royal Highness, what do you mean? Did you remember incorrectly?" Dugu Menghai's heart was racing. He couldn't believe his ears. The crown prince had admitted that he was the one who had written the lines in the sky. Dugu Menghai wanted to cry. The Dugu family and the Zhou family were close allies. If Zhou Qingwan could marry the crown prince, the Dugu family would benefit from it as well, but he now discovered that the crown prince had come to see Feng Wu. The Zhou family had invited members of all the influential families of the imperial capital tonight. Rumor was that the crown prince was so in love with Zhou Qingwan that he was going to announce their engagement tonight. That love never existed. Nor would there be an engagement. The crown prince wouldn't even set foot inside the Zhou family residence. He was here with Feng Wu. Not only that, he also wrote those words to announce his feelings to the world. He was in love with Feng Wu. Feng Wu was their ultimate enemy. Dugu Menghai glared at Feng Wu. Meanwhile, Feng Wu was dumbfounded. Ever since Jun Linyuan said that he had written those words, her head stopped working. A little Feng Wu in a pink dress laughed in her head. "I told you so. He's fond of you." A little Feng Wu in a black dress shook her head. "No, it can't be. It has to be a misunderstanding." Pink Feng Wu said, "If he's not in love with you, why would he give in whenever you speak nicely to him?" Black Feng Wu said, "Because that's just the way he is." Pink Feng Wu said, "If other people try to do the same thing, they'll be kicked away before they get anywhere near him. You're so dumb." Black Feng Wu covered her face. "I don't believe you." While the two little girls fought in her head, Feng Wu remained dumbfounded. She closed her eyes and decided to pretend that she hadn't heard anything. Chapter 2456. I wrote them. However, Dugu Menghai was determined to arrest Feng Wu. He looked from Feng Wu to Jun Linyuan and came up with an idea. They could accept that the crown prince was in love with Feng Wu, but he had to marry Zhou Qingwan. Therefore, Feng Wu had to be arrested. That way, she would be tamed and could only obey Zhou Qingwan's orders in the future. At that thought, Dugu Menghai summoned up his courage and looked Jun Linyuan in the eye. "Your Royal Highness, don't you think what you wrote has crossed the line? The order came from His Majesty, so I must take Feng Wu with me." Hearing that those men were going to take Feng Wu away, the beautiful lady burst into tears. She wanted to go out and help her daughter. It pained Emperor Wu to see Lady Ling like this, so he immediately said, "Just wait here. I'll go." The beautiful lady looked at Emperor Wu with teary eyes. "Can you help us?" That was all Emperor Wu needed to hear. "Of course I can." Who could say no to such a beautiful woman? "It'll only take a minute." Emperor Wu turned around and marched off. Gao didn't know what to say. His Majesty had never been so eager in front of any of his women. Dugu Menghai couldn't believe his eyes when he saw Emperor Wu. He was astonished. His face lost all color. And his head went blank. Dugu Menghai froze on the spot, as if he was in a trance. He stared at Emperor Wu and Qin Yan. Captain Qin was his direct superior, and becoming the captain of the Imperial Guards was Dugu Menghai's life goal. Why don't I remember giving such an order? Emperor Wu raised his eyebrows and asked in a casual tone. He was feeling very protective at the moment because Lady Ling was watching. He wanted to show her that he was the most important man in this empire. Dugu Menghai dropped to his knees. "Your Majesty, why are you here?" Emperor Wu said coldly, "Do I need to inform you where I go?" Dugu Menghai shook his head, and his face was very pale. No, I didn't mean that. I was only trying to say." Emperor Wu smirked. "You're only trying to say that I gave you the order to arrest Feng Wu, is that it?" Dugu Menghai looked like he was going to pass out. He knew that he had made the biggest mistake. The imperial guards were in charge of guarding the capital city. If their vice-captain delivered a false order from the emperor, the entire army could be seen to have turned against the throne as well. Therefore, Dugu Menghai couldn't afford to be considered a liar. But now, he had said such a thing when His Majesty was listening. He had just delivered a false imperial edict. Dugu Menghai didn't think that the emperor would take Feng Wu's side, but what he did was still unforgivable. He had forgotten all about Sui Qinghuan and was overwhelmed by the fear of death. He didn't want to die. Your Majesty, it was all my fault. I shouldn't have made up such an order. But those words still show Feng Wu's intent to usurp the throne. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.